On today's show, I break down all of the details related to the Paycheck Protection Program, how to apply, what's included, how the director of the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics, Neil Ferguson, is the one who originally scared you about the coronavirus, and why you should have logical reasons to have hope about the effectiveness of the treatments now available to treat the coronavirus. All this and more on today's edition of the Thrive Time Show.
But Dr. Smith, you pointed out that not a single patient of yours, COVID patient, that has been on the hydroxy regimen has had to be intubated. For people who don't know what intubated means, please explain quickly.
Yeah, so intubated means you're in respiratory failure and you have to be put on a ventilator. Intubation means actually putting the tube down into your trachea and then you're placed on a ventilator for support, respiratory support. We've had, I mentioned the 20 intubations, over most all of them occurred in the first 2 days. More importantly, no person has received 5 days or more of the hydroxychloroquine and zithro combination has been intubated. The chance of that occurring by chance, according to my sons Leon and Hunter, who did some stats for me, are 0.000 something. It's ridiculously low depending on how you look at it. Yeah. It's ridiculously low no matter how you look at it. We worry about selection bias in this situation, but I cannot think of a reason why, if all else is equal, why people that have received 5 days or more, or even 4 days or more, this hydroxychloroquine zithro regimen wouldn't get intubated. In other words, if the regimen didn't work, why would it just be the people that didn't get nearly complete the regimen? Most of the people were in the first 2 days.
Right, Dr. Smith, we're going to have you. We're going to have you back. Yeah, it's a game changer, correct?
It's a game changer. It's absolute game changer. I think these data go to really support the French data. Now you actually have an intra-cohort comparison saying that this regimen works. Laura, I think this is the beginning of the end of the pandemic. I'm very serious.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrive Time Show.
3, 2, 1, here we go!
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here.
Yes, and yes. Thrive Nation, on today's show, we're talking about the Paycheck Protection Program. Dr. Breck, have you started filling out applications for the Paycheck Protection Program?
Yes, I have.
And as a non-member of the Small Business Administration, but as a chiropractor and as an entrepreneur, what is the Paycheck Protection Program as you understand it?
Well, as I understand it, it's a program put out by the federal government through the SBA for business owners to borrow as much as 2.5 times their average monthly payroll from the last year. And they can use that money to pay their employees to keep them employed for the next few months.
You win a mega point. I know that's something you're excited about this morning. You win a mega point.
That was actually beautifully said.
I got to crank it up a little more here. You win a mega point. Oh, that's good. Okay. So, Jason, you've been helping your clients go through the Paycheck Protection Program.
Oh, yeah.
What are some of the questions they've had, or where have they gotten stuck? Where have they been unable to figure out the next steps? My entire goal of today's show is to walk each and every listener through this process of filling out the Paycheck Protection Program applications.
Well, the first question that I've gotten from all of my clients has been, why are you telling me this and why isn't the bank telling me this? And that I can't answer because I know that it has been a lengthy process in order to put all this together. You've just been on top of it, working with Regent Bank, getting as much information as possible. But the second question, of course, is, do I have to do this at my bank? What if my bank's not accepting it? And we just kind of work through the channels of where we can find our clients, funding or banks that will do this, 7A banks, SBA-approved banks, or any bank that's not approved by the SBA that can still actually do the PPP program.
Oh, man, he's throwing in some information there. Okay, this is something that the SBA announced, and so I'm going to play the audio for everybody out there. Let me cue the audio. This is from the Small Business Administration press conference. Here we go.
Vice President, thank you, Jovita. Mr. President, you've made clear to us We now need to execute. We need to get money to small business and American workers, and that's what we're doing. The SBA and Treasury committed to get this program up and running tomorrow, and when Jovita says people...
Now, tomorrow, this conference was held Thursday night, so he was saying the program needed to be up on Friday.
Working around the clock, we had both teams working till 4 o'clock in the morning and start working again today. We've heard feedback from lenders, community banks, regional banks, and we spent the last 24 hours making this system even easier. So this will be up and running tomorrow. I encourage all small businesses that have 500 or fewer people, please contact your lenders. Any FDIC institution will be able to do this, any credit union, existing SBA lenders, and fintech lenders. You get the money.
So a quick update. Pretty much you can get this Paycheck Protection Program funding anywhere.
Right.
Like community banks, SBA approved banks, non-SBA approved banks, credit unions, and that is a new thing.
Right.
Also, Breck, did you see the new form?
No.
There was a new form that rolled out on Friday. Jason, this form is different than the previous form we had.
It is.
And so they added some new things. Did you fill out the new form?
No, not a new one. No. So I went in on Monday and talked to my banker, as you advised last week.
Yep.
And I started the process a week ago.
Well, you might want to fill out this new form before you leave today.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is the new one.
Yeah, it's more or less the same. It just makes more sense now.
And I want to make sure we're getting this idea, though. This is good. This might be a miracle here.
Yeah.
It's more or less the same, but the first one, they won't process it unless you have the new one filled out.
Yep.
And so, but the banks didn't hear about it until after we heard about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to make sure you know. So here's what the head of the SBA is saying about the new Paycheck Protection Program. Here we go.
Lenders and fintech lenders. You get the money, you'll get it the same day.
And see, that's a new thing.
Yep.
Because before they said within 72 hours.
Some people are even reporting they said they'd get back to me in a week or two.
Yes. And there was actually a few banks that said 4 to 8 weeks. So this just in. Here we go.
You use this to pay your workers. Please bring your workers back to work. If you've let them go, you have 8 weeks plus overhead. This is a very important program. I'm pleased to announce we are going to raise the interest rate on these loans. And again, the interest rate is paid for as part of the program. The borrower doesn't have to pay this to 1%.
Can somebody please explain to me why it's a good thing to raise the interest rate? Well, I'll explain this to you. If you're a local community bank, and let's say that you do a bunch of these SBA loans, banks make money by basically borrowing money from the Federal Reserve. It's kind of a complicated thing, but just look at it like this. Point A, the money starts with the Federal Reserve. Point B, it goes to the bank. Point C, it goes to the customer. And on every level, there's a slight markup, and that's how it works. So if you go to Quick Trip today and you buy some milk at the gas station, Quick Trip did not make the milk. The farmer produced the milk. He sells it to Quick Trip. Quick Trip sells it to you. The Federal Reserve prints money. They give that money to the bank. The bank marks it up. They sell it to you. So this SBA program 1.0, there wasn't a commission in there.
Right.
So why would a human on the planet Earth not be super motivated, Breck, to help you, even in your time of need? Right. Why would a banker not be super motivated, even in your time of need, to help you with your SBA funding if they did not make any commission on it?
Well, that's just it. I mean, it was work for them and zero benefit.
So if we're out there today and you have a business, you want to fill this out.
Right.
Why? Because by and large, you're forbidden from doing work.
True.
Are the haircut business, elephant in the room, we can't be open?
No. I mean, have you seen my face and hair? I look terrible. It's only been a week, too.
Yeah, I've noticed it's weak. I did not realize how hairy you've got.
I disagree. I think you look great.
That's amazing. So elephant in the room, you can't get a haircut right now. You cannot. There's a lot of businesses that are closed, not these non-essential businesses.
Right.
But you can go to a marijuana dispensary. Good news. You can go to a liquor store. Good news.
They're up, what, 55, 65% sales?
Yeah, the liquor stores, according to Newsweek, are up 55%. You could go to an abortion clinic. Good news, right? I mean, these are all things that I'm just telling you this. I might not be a fan of any of those first three categories, but they're open because they're considered to be essential by somebody. So on today's shows, we're talking about this Paycheck Protection Program. All I'm trying to do is to make sure that you have all of your questions answered and all resolved. Now, so Breck, once we fill out this updated form, you got to round up some documents.
Right.
And I'm going to give you the documents you have to round up here.
Sure.
So, one, you've got to have your 941 quarterly payroll reports.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you possibly need your payroll reports if the government is going to give you 2.5 times your monthly payroll?
Well, the government likes documentation. They're probably not going to just start giving out money on, Billy Bob said so. And
What?
And so they're going to need some official documents that you've paid payroll taxes on a certain amount last year.
Yep.
On average, they can kind of cross-reference what you're asking for and what you're saying you need now versus what you paid last year on that monthly average payroll.
And we need signed copies of your tax returns.
Mm-hmm.
Why would we need signed copies of your tax returns, Breck? Why can't you just go in there and make some claims?
Well, again, there's going to be a hook on the end of this
Oh, a
if
hook.
you use this money for other purposes. And so, they need to know, A, you're a legitimate business and that you have filed taxes in the past, that you're filing taxes currently, that you're up and running and doing proper business in the first place.
Now, Breck, why would you need to bring your personal identification? Why do you think they would want to have a photo ID of you?
Well, first of all, I don't want Clay Clark claiming money in my name.
Oh, get out of here.
He didn't say anything about Jason, though. So
Or Jason, for that matter.
Friends let
Yeah.
friends use each other's Paycheck Protection Program money, like we always say.
that's what I thought.
Okay, so you keep people from frauding the system.
Right.
You also have to bring your articles of organization.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, these are all things you have to bring, but you don't have to provide personal guarantees or assets to qualify
Right.
for
No
this.
collateral. Yeah.
And the reason why is because the government is shutting us down. Therefore, we don't have an option. So the government is essentially paying you to not work, which is a bizarre idea.
Can I tack something on to those
Sure.
documents?
Tack
you
it
need?
on, Harry man.
So I'm a Wookiee now.
That's impressive.
But no, so a lot of the clients that I have are super solid, but as they're making their way through the documents, every now and then they're like, oh, crap, where are my articles of organization? Or how do I get all of this that I need? And so they're spending time going to like their accountants or CPAs. Well, they're bombarded with taxes and people asking them questions about this, so their response time is a little lagging. So if you need any of this documentation, any of you business or any of you listeners that have a business that want to apply for this, get on Google and just type in Secretary of State and your state's name, or go to sos.yourstatesabbreviation.gov. And every single Secretary of State is going to have an online business resources center. You click on business search, and then you just put in your name. It will pull up your entire it'll bring up operating agreement, articles of organization, and they're like $3 to $4 per article, and you can get them like same day, if not within a couple days.
Now, Nathan with Complete Carpet, have you filled out your Paycheck Protection Program?
Yes, we have.
And have you filled out all the paperwork? What bank did you go to?
We used Regent Bank.
And how are they to work with? What was the upside, the downside? Tell me about how it went.
It has been good so far. Obviously, I think like most of America, we're still waiting on the next step because they keep rolling out next new guidances on everything. And so we're making sure we get all of this checks filled. But so far, we've filled out all the paperwork they need. So as soon as they're ready to go, we're ready to go.
Now, so far, I know of 2 clients that have been approved for this. 2 so far.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we go back to this press conference here, this is the SBA head talking to people. Let me hit play again. And Breck, see if you can interpret government speak. Here we go. Let me hit play here. Here we go.
Back to work. If you've let them go, you have 8 weeks plus overhead. This is a very important program. I'm pleased to announce we are going to raise the interest rate on these loans. And again, the interest rate is paid for as part of the program. The borrower doesn't have to pay this to 1%. We had announced it was going to be 50 basis points. We've heard from some smaller community banks that their deposit costs, even though the government's borrowing at 3 or 4 basis points, this is on average a 90-day loan. To make this attractive for community banks, we've agreed to raise the interest rate. Again, I encourage everybody, take out the Paycheck Protection Program. I'm also pleased to report the economic impact payments. I had previously
Breck, why do you feel like he's encouraging everybody to take out the Paycheck Protection Program?
Well, I mean, the economy right now is at a standstill. So I do think that's at least a part of the idea here. But it's also kind of funny or ironic, maybe, a better term, that he's saying, hire your people, keep them working, get them back to work, but you're not allowed to. So that part's still a challenge for me.
Let's cue up this part of the interview here. Let me cue up the audio here. You tell me what he's saying here.
Existing SBA lenders and fintech lenders. You get the money, you'll get it the same day. You use this to pay your workers.
Now, what day did you apply, Breck?
I started the process on Monday.
And, okay, and he made this statement on Thursday night.
Yep.
Jason, do you know of any clients that were funded Thursday night or Friday? How about Friday, to be fair? Friday?
No, I've only actually had one client that got accepted as far as they said, you're good to go.
And that's Mark the Builder.
Mm-hmm. And they told him that he would have it between 1 and 3 days.
Okay, Nathan, when were you told you would be funded?
They said they would start on Monday.
So when he said same day, he said Thursday. He said you apply, you'll get funded the same day.
Yeah.
What same day?
Maybe he said someday, but he pronounces his O's weird.
Okay, so when the government says same day, it's the same day of the day that you get funded? So the same day you get funded is the same day you'll get the funding.
Oh, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Is that what that means?
That's the same day it goes into your bank account?
The day you get it in your account
Is
is
the
the
day
day you get funded.
Oh, nice. That's great. Okay, so that's encouraging.
Which is not the same day as you apply.
Oh, okay. Now I'm going to read some of the areas of the form. We're going to go through the form together, and as we go through it, if anybody has any questions or we feel like we need to clarify, we're going to do it. So, the Paycheck Protection Borrower Application Form. By signing below, you make the following representations, authorizations, and certifications. Certifications and authorizations. I certify that I have read the statements included in this form, including the state's requirements, including the statements required by law, and executive orders, and I understand them. I don't know that I understand them. I don't know that I do. But I'm filling this out. So it's you get funded the same day. Mm-hmm. You understand these statements? Okay, we continue. The applicant is eligible to receive a loan under the rules in effect at the time this application is submitted that have been issued by the Small Business Administration, the SBA. Implementing the Paycheck Protection Program under Division A, Title I of the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, the CARES Act, the Paycheck Protection Program rule. The applicant, 1, is an independent contractor, eligible self-employed individual, or a sole proprietor, or 2 employees, no more than the greater of 500 or employees, or, if applicable, the size standard and number of employees established by the SBA in 13 CFR 121.201 for the applicant's industry. Now, I don't know what that means. No. C period F period R period 121.201. Breck, do you know what that means?
No, I believe it references some kind of rule at some point, documented somewhere, but no.
But I have read the statements included in this form, including the statements required by law and executive orders, and I understand them, and they're going to fund us the same day.
Right.
The day they fund us is the day we get funded, folks. So
Correct.
I want everybody to be encouraged.
Well funded.
Okay, here we go. Now, I will comply whenever applicable with the civil rights and the other limitations in this form. All SBA loans proceeds will be used only for business-related purposes, as specified in the loan application and consistent with the Paycheck Protection Program rule. To the extent feasible, I will purchase only American-made equipment and products. Now, I was thinking about this because that's what I do on this show. On this show, what we do is we break down. We get into the weeds, folks. We get into the details that no one else is going to get into. No one's going to invest an entire show to work through a form.
Well, the frustrating part now is I have to, put a hold on that Norwegian-built hot tub that I was going to buy.
That is true. Now let me cue this up real quick. You were going to put in a Norwegian-built hot tub?
No.
The hat that I have on.
Mm-hmm.
Let me find out where it was made. Okay, let me cue it up here. Breck, look at where your hat was made. My hat that I have on my head was made in Bangladesh. Now, I haven't, my shorts, I'm not going to look right now.
Vietnam.
Yeah. Okay, so if you had purchased that hat for your business.
Right.
That has Oklahoma State on it.
In honor of Coach Eddie Sutton, who just got voted into the Hall of Fame.
There it is.
Yeah.
Good job, Eddie Sutton. Good job, Eddie. Eddie, he's a great friend, a great American. Love Eddie Sutton. So, you have an OSU hat on.
I do.
I have a Make America Boom Again hat on. I have some And One shorts on. these were not made in America.
Right.
Now, let me check where my shoes were made. Jason, look where your shoes were made. Are you rocking your Yeezys?
Yep.
Oh, nice.
China.
China, really?
I believe so. I could be wrong.
I don't know if it says in the shoe where they're made.
Is that just a default answer?
Yeah.
I don't. Okay. All right.
They're made in Kanye's basement by him.
Okay.
Every single pair.
So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what I could buy that's made in America.
Not a lot.
I don't know. I mean, seriously, like this
Steel.
this table I bought at Mathis Brothers is not made in America. I know this because I've asked. The monitors I'm using right here to record the show, the screens are not made in America.
Right.
I do not know where this microphone was made, but I would bet none of my wood block is from the Timber Drum Company, made in the USA.
Yes, we got
Yes,
it.
yes.
You can buy that.
So, folks, you can buy wood blocks. You can buy those things.
Actually, I don't know if music stores are. Is Guitar Center still open?
Certainly not.
I don't think so.
Well, online you can buy.
In my mind, it would be an essential business.
Right.
Right.
But marijuana stores, marijuana dispensaries are deemed to be essential today. But I don't know that if that Guitar Center would be. But so I've got the wood block. I've got. Let me look at my magical money button. Love this button. It is made. This magical money button. It's made in China by the commies. Now, it's interesting. It's interesting. So I don't know whether if anybody could comply with that.
Right.
So if the government wanted to say that you violated the rules by not buying in America, they pretty easily could, because I mean I don't know to the extent feasible that I will purchase only American-made equipment and products. Now, the applicant, the next part, it says the applicant is not engaged in any activity that is illegal under federal, state, or local law. Okay. Any loan received by the applicant under Section 7B2 of the Small Business Act between January 31st, 2020 and April 3rd, 2020 was for a purpose other than paying payroll costs and other allowable uses under the Paycheck Protection Program. What does that mean, Breck? I don't know what those words are.
Right. Well, so that's where I intend to avoid buying things made elsewhere. Is my idea and purpose for going ahead and doing this program is to pay payroll, and then like paying my lease on my building.
Same
and,
here.
And mortgage. And so those things are not products that are built anywhere. So,
Okay.
So I feel like I'm going to avoid that other catch.
Aren't your employees made in the USA?
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go.
All of mine are, as far as I know.
Now it says for
all
applicants,
natural citizens.
for applicants who are individuals, I authorize the SBA to request criminal record information about me from the criminal justice agencies for the purpose of determining my eligibility for the programs authorized by the Small Business Act, as amended. Certifications. The authorized representative of the applicant must certify in good faith to all of the below by initialing next to each one. Okay, here we go. I'm going to initial here. The applicant was in operation on February 15th, 2020, and had employees whom it paid salaries and payroll taxes or paid independent contractors as reported, Forms 1099 MISC. Current economic uncertainty makes this loan request necessary to support the ongoing operations of the applicant. I mean, wouldn't that apply to everybody?
Well, not necessarily. I have heard of a couple of businesses that are actually up a little bit.
But, I mean, how long could they sustain to be up?
Right. Not very long, I wouldn't think.
It's like one of my clients, they make hand sanitizer.
Yeah, they're probably killing it.
They did $40,000 of sales yesterday.
Woo. Yeah.
They used to do $40,000 a month. True story. But eventually, who are they going to sell to if every American doesn't have a job?
True.
I mean, 10 million people filed for unemployment in the last 2 weeks. So, again, it says here, the funds will be used to retain workers and maintain payroll or mortgage interest payments, lease payments, and utility payments as specified under the Paycheck Protection Program rule. I understand that if the funds are knowingly used for unauthorized purposes, the federal government may hold me legally liable, such as for charges of fraud. Okay, so folks, don't F with the man. So we move on. I understand that loan forgiveness will be provided for the sum of documented payroll costs, covered mortgage interest payments, covered rents, and covered utilities, and not more than 25% of the forgiven amount may be on non-payroll costs. During the period between February 15th and 2020 and the ending of December 31st, 2020, the applicant has not and will not receive another loan under the Paycheck Protection Program.
No double dipping.
No double dipping. No triple dipping, folks. Don't, folks. If you're going to go out to a party tonight, which you can't, but if you were going to go out to a
not legally anyway.
Yeah, if you went
and
to
then you're a criminal and you can't sign that form.
Right. So if you had a party with your wife, you and your wife are partying tonight, show some respect and don't double dip or triple dip. Okay, we continue. Says, I further certify that the information provided in this application and the information provided in all supporting documents and forms is true and accurate in all material respects. I understand that knowingly making a false statement to obtain a guaranteed loan from the SBA is punishable under law, including under 18 U.S.C. 1001. Well, of course, that's my favorite part. And 3571, by imprisonment of not more than 5 years and or a fine of $250,000 under the 15 U.S.C. 645. Breck, that's my favorite part. Is that your favorite part?
Yeah, well, but just under 5 years, that's also 3 square meals a day for up
That's
to
true.
5 years.
Oh.
In a sterile environment?
And as far as I know, they still have toilet paper.
Nice.
And if you're going to be losing your business anyway.
I mean, we're just trying to find that silver lining.
By 15, this is under 15 U.S.C. 645 by imprisonment of not more than 2 years and or a fine of not more than $5,000 if submitted to a federally insured institution. Under 18 U.S.C. 1014 by imprisonment of not more than 30 years and or a fine of not more than $1 million. I acknowledge that the lender will confirm the eligible loan amount using required documents submitted. I understand and acknowledge and agree that the lender can share any tax information that I have provided with the SBA's authorized representatives, including authorized representatives of the SBA Office of the Inspector General, for the purpose of compliance with the SBA program requirements and all SBA reviews. All right, so far, are we clear here? Are we clear?
Yeah. I feel like they should have put that top line underneath all of these. Because you say, you start off initially, I understand all of these.
Yeah.
And then it goes into the explanation.
Everything that I don't understand.
Right.
All right, so you have to check the boxes here. At the very top of the form, you have to check the boxes. Are you a sole proprietor? Are you a partner? Are you a C Corp? Are you an S Corp? Are you an LLC? Are you an independent contractor? Eligible self-employed and individual? A 501c3 nonprofit? A 501c3 19 veterans organization? A tribal business? Other. Jason, have you had clients that were stuck there or no?
Well, yeah, because prior to Friday, anybody who filled out the original form, this was not included. They had
This area wasn't here.
That's right. They had tribe, other, and sole proprietor. And so I
I'm
work
going.
with
Well,
a
I've always
lot of-
considered myself to be kind of a tribe.
Right.
Well, and
know.
even myself, I mean, I'm an LLC that files as an S Corp. That's 2 boxes.
Hey, do you think if Q-Tip filled this out, they'd have to be a tribe? Or
Oh, nice. I see what you did there.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Impressive. Okay. Now, it says DBA or trade name, if applicable. Now, DBA stands for doing business as. So you got to figure out that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got to put your business legal name, business address, your business employee identification number or your social security number, your business phone number, your primary contact, your email. Did you have any clients get stuck right there filling out this form?
No. That part was very self-explanatory after they added the boxes for LLC.
Okay. And then average monthly payroll. Are we good on that?
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is times 2.5 plus EIDL. Now, a lot of people don't know what the EIDL is.
True. A lot of people got stuck right on that box.
That's not an expressway?
So it's an economic injury disaster loan emergency advance. The economic injury disaster loan emergency. So a lot of people didn't know what that form was. They didn't know that question. Have you had clients that get stuck there, Jason?
Yep, because they get to the payroll and like, okay, I figured out my average monthly payroll. I know what that is times 2.5, but how do I factor in the EIDL? I haven't heard back yet.
So you're going to have to skip that and just fill out the form.
Yes.
So if you don't have an EIDL loan, if you don't have the economic injury disaster loan in progress, or you're not even going to get that, just don't factor it in.
Right.
Now, the number of employees. Have you had clients stuck there?
Not since they updated it, because the original form said number of jobs, which that threw people like for a loop. They were going back through their QuickBooks saying, how many jobs did I do last year?
Now, the purpose of the loan, it says payroll, lease, utilities, other. I think you would check, it says select more than one. So I think you just select the payroll, lease, utilities, other. Applicant ownership, you got to list all owners of 20% or more of the equity of the applicant. Attach a separate sheet if necessary. Is the applicant or any owner of the applicant presented, suspended, debarred, proposed for debarment, declared ineligible, voluntarily excluded from participation in this transaction by any federal department or agency, or presentedly involved in any bankruptcy. And you have to check yes or no. Breck, does that part make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, the next part says...
I mean, they don't want to lend money to somebody already in bankruptcy.
No, there we go. Okay, this says, question number 2. Has the applicant any owner of the applicant... What? Has the applicant any owner of the applicant?
Well, because the applicant could be a business entity, so the owner of the entity.
Oh, man, I'm glad you're my life coach. Okay. Has the applicant or any owner of the applicant... Like, I don't know whether someone owns me.
Right.
I
Are you sure? We have some
is
old
that
paperwork.
I had a lot to drink when I sold my soul to Jason, but I didn't know it was for real. Okay. So has the applicant, any owner of the applicant, or any business owned or controlled by any of them ever obtained a direct guaranteed loan from the SBA or any other federal agency that's currently delinquent or has defaulted in the last 7 years and caused a loss to the government? Is the applicant or any owner of the applicant an owner of any other business or have common management with any other business? If yes, list all of such businesses and describe the relationship on a separate sheet identified as Addendum A. Okay. You feel good about that?
Well, to me, I understand that as, again, trying to avoid the double dip. So
Double
if you
dip.
have common management that, both are applying, then you don't end up taking into account this same number of employees twice.
Okay.
Is the way I read that.
By the way, are you still in business right now?
Yes.
You're essential?
Yes.
How's that going?
We're down. I mean, our numbers are down.
How far down are you? Halfway down? You third way down?
It varies day to day, but we're probably somewhere between a third and 40%
down.
Down.
Yeah. That's impressive. Are people scared when they come in to meet with you?
There are a number of people that are scared. Some are less scared, and some are quite scared. And so it's a wide range of emotions, but a lot of emotions, a lot of strong feelings one way or another.
Oh, Shunda. Now, before we wrap up today's show, I'm going to give everybody some facts about how scared you should be or shouldn't be. Just giving you some facts.
Right.
All right, so here we go. Has the applicant received an SBA economic disaster loan between January 31st, 2020 and April 3rd, 2020? If yes, provide details on a separate sheet identified as Addendum B. All right, question number 5. If an individual, says, is the applicant, if an individual, or any individual owning 20% or more of the equity of the applicant subject to an indictment, criminal information, arraignment, and other means by which formal criminal charges are brought in any jurisdiction or presently incarcerated or on probation or payroll? Initial here to confirm your response. Within the last 5 years or for any felony, has the applicant, if an individual, or any owner of the applicant, 1, been convicted, pleaded guilty, pleaded nolo contendere? Breck, you want to interpret here?
No contest. Nolo
Nice.
contendere.
Why can't they just write that? Why does it write nolo contendere?
You didn't file guilty, but you also said I'm not fighting it.
They do that to make me sound stupid on my own show. That's point 4.
Only because I've paid speeding tickets. Nolo contendere.
Been placed on pretrial diversion or have been placed on any form of parole or probation, including probation before judgment. Initial here. Is the United States the principal place of residence for all employees of the applicant included in the applicant's payroll calculations above? Is the applicant a franchise that is listed in the SBA's franchise directory? Okay. Are we good there, guys? We good? You feeling good? Okay.
So that was one of those. That is the parent company of the franchise. I mean, is that the issue there that they're filing versus the franchise individuals?
This is like if you had like a Domino's,
right?
And you were filling this out. They're wanting to know: are you part of a franchise system that is currently in the SBA's franchise directory? The SBA approved, and I don't want to go too far there.
So does that exclude you, or they just need to know?
They just need to know.
Okay.
But I don't believe it excludes you.
Gotcha.
Now, the Paycheck Protection Program borrow application form. The purpose of this form. This form is to be completed by the authorized representative of the applicant and submitted to your SBA participating lender. Submission of the requested information is required to make a determination regarding the eligibility for financial assistance. Failure to submit the information would affect that determination. There's no space there. They needed to put a space there, but they didn't put a space between that and determination.
Revision 4.
It's one word.
What's that? Have you seen this? Do you see this? There's no space here.
Oh, wow.
And I'm saying this to you because there were errors at the top of the form earlier this week, and there will be errors as we go through this.
True.
But we've never had a complete shutdown of our country. So,
Well, he did say his employees are working until 4 a.m. So maybe this was rolled out at 3:30 or something. They were a little bleary-eyed.
Carl, are you still awake? Yeah. Finish the form. Okay.
Working on that 8th cup of coffee.
Instructions for completing this form. All right, here we go. With respect to purpose of the loan, payroll costs consist of compensation to employees whose principal place of residence in the United States in the form of salary, wages, commissions, or similar commission compensation, cash tips or the equivalent based on employer records or of past tips, or in the absence of such records, a reasonable good faith employer estimate of such tips, payments for vacation, parental, family, medical, or sick leave, allowance for separation and dismissal, payment for the provision of employee benefits consisting of group health care coverage, including insurance premiums and retirement, payment of state and local taxes assessed on compensation of employees, and for an independent contractor or sole proprietor, wage, commissions, income, or net earnings from self-employment or similar compensation. I can tell you guys, I enjoy reading this as much as you enjoy hearing it. For purposes of calculating the average monthly payroll, most applicants will use the average monthly payroll for 2019, excluding costs over $100,000, on an annualized basis for each employee. For seasonal businesses, the applicant may elect to instead use average monthly payroll for the period between February 15th and June 30th, 2019, excluding costs over $100,000 on an annualized basis for each employee. For new businesses, average monthly payroll may be calculated using the time period from January 1st to February 29th, 2020, excluding costs over $100,000 on an annualized basis for each employee. If the applicant is refinancing an economic injury disaster loan, which no one has yet, add the outstanding amount of the EIDL made between January 31st, 2020 and April 3rd, 2020, less the amount of any advance under the EIDL COVID-19 loan. Whoa. To loan request as indicated on the form. All parties listed below are considered owners of the applicant as defined in 13 CFR. What is that even? What is that? What is that thing? What kind of abbreviation is that? It's like as defined in the 13 CFR. What is that? Is that a?
I don't know what that symbol's called.
It's amazing. It's probably the mark of the beast.
Oh, the CFR. I was looking into that earlier. That is basically how much the loan can be, or it's the stipulations on how big the loan can be.
What does it stand for?
Let me pull it back up for real.
Code of Federal Regulations.
Yes.
Are you being serious?
Yeah.
Yep.
What is this thing in the middle though? What is this? Okay. Anyway,
Is that like
I think
that
it
weird
holds
thing
a
in, like,
space.
encyclopedia?
are
It's
you
like a
seeing this,
bookmarker.
Jason? Are you seeing this?
I'm going to see if I can find that thing.
That's not used in English. I know that.
Okay, 12010 as well as principles. For a sole proprietorship, the sole proprietor. For a partnership, all general partners and all limited partners owning 20% or more of the equity of the firm. For a corporation, all owners of 20% or more of the corporation. For limited liability companies, all members owning 20% or more of the company. Any truster, if the applicant is owned by a trust. Ooh, Paperwork Reduction Act. Thank you for remembering. You are not required to respond to this collection of information unless it displays a current valid OMB control number. OMB? What is that there, Brostradamus?
I don't know, but I figured out what that weird rune is.
What is
the
that?
double S. It's a section sign.
What does that mean?
The section sign is a typographical glyph for referencing individually numbered sections of a document. It is frequently used when citing sections of a legal code. It is also commonly called section symbol, section mark, double S, or silk trail.
Legal jargon.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure, because it says on here that I have read this document
And understand it.
and understand it. And I'm not the kind of guy who's going to just fill it out and say, yes, I understand if I don't. So I'm just going through. I'm making myself and yourself. We're all going through this. We're just pushing through the pain here. But it says, you are not required to respond to this collection of information unless it displays a current valid OMB control number. What is an OMB control number?
It's
Office of Management and Budget.
Are you being serious?
Yeah.
I tell you what, you're getting a lot of mega points. Okay.
It says it further down.
And you will see at the top right hand, if you're doing the SBA stuff, they'll have that control number at the top right. So
True.
they're saying if you don't see it there, this is a fake website.
Yep.
The estimated time for completing this application, including gathering the data, is 8 minutes.
How long is this podcast?
I'm just saying, I love that that's true for some people, but for me, I mean, I've been reading this at I feel like a medium pace for about 29 minutes here, and I'm trying to go through it. But for me, I don't know that it's 8 minutes.
Even as Jason referenced earlier, so many owners and entrepreneurs of small businesses are not as organized as it would require to do this in 8 minutes. Myself included.
True. So comments about this time where the information requested should be sent to Small Business Administration Director, Records Management Division, 409 3rd Street, Southwest, Washington, D.C., 20416, and or the SBA Desk Officer, Office of Management and Budget, New Executive Office Building, Washington, D.C., 20503. The Privacy Act, 5 U.S.C. 552A. Under the provisions of the Privacy Act, you are not required to provide your Social Security number. Failure to provide your Social Security number may not affect any right, benefit, or privilege to which you are entitled. But see debt collection notice regarding taxpayer identification number below. Disclosures of names and other personal identifiers are required to provide the SBA with the sufficient information to make a character determination. When evaluating character, the SBA considers the person's integrity, candor, and disposition towards criminal actions. Additionally, the SBA is specifically authorized to verify your criminal history or lack thereof pursuant to Section 7A of the Small Business Act. Disclosure of the information. Requests for information about another party may be denied unless the SBA has the written permission of the individual to release the information to the requester, or unless the information is subject to disclosure under the Freedom of Information Act. The Privacy Act authorizes the SBA to claim or to make certain routine uses of information protected by the Act. One such routine is the disclosure of criminal or administrative in nature. Specifically, the SBA may refer the information to the appropriate agency, whether federal, state, or local, or foreign, charged with responsibility for, or otherwise involved in investigation, prosecution, enforcement, or prevention of such violations. Another routine use is disclosure to other federal agencies conducting background checks, but only to the extent the information is relevant to the requesting agency's function. See 74F.R. 14890, 2009. As amended from time to time for the additional background and other routine uses. In addition, the CARES Act requires the SBA to register every loan under the Paycheck Protection Program using the taxpayer identification number assigned to the borrower. Does this make sense, Jason? Did you just learn anything at all? Did anything I just say? I feel like I had an outer body experience where I kind of blacked out midway through.
But you kept reading?
No, I totally did. It's because I'm like trying to follow along with you while you're reading.
I'm sure for many people it sounded a lot like Peanuts. Wah 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 wah
like
wah
when the parents talk.
But we're supposed to have read this,
right,
and understand all of it.
Yeah. So what I understood from that was the SBA has their right to background search you as much as they want, as they see fit, based on their own criteria for what's necessary.
Why can't you write these forms?
Because I'm not an attorney,
okay.
So I don't speak in legalese.
The Debt Collection Act of 1982, Deficit Reduction Act of 1984.
I remember that one. Do you remember that one?
Oh, it's one of my favorites. Otherwise known as the 31 USC 3701 ET SEQ and other titles.
That's heavy reading for a 2-year-old.
SBA must obtain your taxpayer identification number when you apply for a loan. If you receive a loan and do not make payments as they come due, the SBA, 1, will report the status of your loans to credit bureaus, hire a collections agency to collect your loan, 3, offset your income tax refund or other amounts due to the federal government, suspend or debar you or your company from doing business with the federal government, and refer your loan to the Department of Justice, or foreclose on collateral or take other actions permitted in the loan instruments. Right to the Financial Privacy Act of 1978. Okay.
Yeah.
The right to the Financial Privacy Act of 1978 grants the SBA access to rights to financial records held by the financial institutions that they're going to have been doing that are or have been doing business with you or your business, including any financial institutions participating in a loan or loan guarantee. The SBA is only required provide. What? There's an error.
SBA is only required to provide.
The SBA is only required to provide a certificate of its compliance. It is.
But it says, listen to this. It says, the SBA is only required to provide. There's a 2 there missing. And guys, listen, that's my 3rd air I've cut. I'm on fire. So let's make sure we get this. There are mistakes on this document.
Going deep.
The SBA is only required to provide a certificate of its compliance with the Act to a financial institution in connection with its first request for access to your financial records. The SBA's access rights continue for the term of any approved loan guarantee agreement. The SBA is also authorized to transfer to any government authority any financial records concerning an approved loan or guaranteed loan as necessary to process, service, or foreclose on any loan guarantee or collect on a defaulted loan guarantee. The Freedom Act, it says the Freedom of Information Act, 5 U.S.C. 552. Subject to certain exemptions, the SBA must supply information reflected in agency files and records to a person requesting it. Information about approved loans that will be automatically released includes, among other things, statistics on our loan programs. Individual borrowers are not identified in the statistics. And other information such as the names of the borrowers and their officers, directors, stockholders, or partners. The collateral pledged to secure the loan, the amount of the loan, its purpose in general terms and maturity. Proprietary data on a borrower would not routinely be available to third parties. All requests under this act are to be addressed to the nearest SBA office and to be identified as the Freedom of Information request. Occupational Safety and Health Act, 15 U.S.C. 651 ETSEQ. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, OSHA, can require businesses to modify facilities to protect employees. Businesses that do not comply may be fined, forced to cease operations, or prevented from starting operations. Signing this form is certification that the applicant, to the best of its knowledge, is in compliance with the OSHA requirements and will remain in compliance during the life of the loan.
Right.
That right there.
That's another hook.
Breck, can you speak a little bit about OSHA compliance from what you know about? I'm not asking you to be an expert on it, but what kind of things have you heard about OSHA compliance?
Well, that's, they have a number of rules and regulations to keep your employees safe. So that, depending on the industry and whatnot, I mean, that may involve being up on a ladder, handrails, certain access, areas, use of like an eye washing station if you're using chemicals, or having ventilation for certain purposes. So there's a number of things that go into that, lifting restrictions, you name it, safety harnesses, all kinds of things.
I would like to look at some of the OSHA requirements right now.
Well, but that's the thing. So you're saying, yes, I agree and will operate by these, but you read off a number of different things already. And then when you check it's like a rabbit hole. You have to also comply with everything that OSHA has required, which is a whole nother set of documents.
And it's going to be different based on your industry.
Correct. So if you're not already OSHA compliant, this is another way that they can come in and cause problems for you.
You know, back when I was in school, I had to take an OSHA test. And if you want to talk about something that makes you want to blow your brains out, oh, my God. It was 2 straight weeks of going through this binder. And for kitchens, holy crap. Like, it makes sense. There's sanitary stuff. There's safety.
I thought this was when you were, being a receptionist, answering the phone.
Oh, no. But, yeah, it's crazy. They give you this binder that's like the size of 2 Bibles. And they're like, learn these, and you can only miss a certain percentage in order to pass. And if you don't pass, you have to take the whole thing over.
You know, if you take a construction worker's hat off and listen to it, you can actually hear the OSHA.
I see what you did there. But no, Clay, if you want to see how this actually applies to a business currently, if you go to the Quick Trip right here off Lynn Lane, I went in to get coffee today, and they had no lids. So I have the coffee. I assume I can't get it, so I pour it out, and I go up to the front. And I'm like, hey, can I not get coffee because there's no lids? And the guy's like, oh, no, they're back here in a sanitary compartment. So I go, fill up my coffee, walk up with no lid. He reaches in with these like sanitized tongs, grabs it, and like slowly hands it to me. Meanwhile, you look down, and they've put 6 feet apart different stickers that say social distancing, and you have to stand in those if you're in line.
At Quick Trip?
Yeah, and so I asked him, I said, hey, I didn't know it was this serious. He goes, oh, this was not Quick Trip's idea. OSHA and the health department came in earlier this week and just like started citing us on all this stuff. So basically, in order to stay open, we had to comply with what they asked.
Which nobody in the Quick Trip will follow. I've been there. We don't follow it.
It's unbelievable.
Well, you're also not allowed to refill your own cup.
True.
So just as an example of OSHA rules, right? So if you get this loan, this Paycheck Protection loan, let me just read you some OSHA rules here about safety and health regulations for construction. The prime contractor or any subcontractor may make their own arrangements with respect to obligations, which might be more appropriately treated on a job site basis rather than individually. Thus, for example, the prime contractor and his subcontractors may wish to make an express agreement that the prime contractor or one of the subcontractors will provide all required first aid or toilet facilities, thus relieving the subcontractors from the actual but not any legal responsibility. In no case shall the prime contractor be relieved of overall responsibility for compliance with the requirements of this part of the work to be performed under the contract. I don't even know what that means. All I know is it's talking about toilet facilities.
Somebody needs a toilet facility and a first aid kit. That's all I got out of that.
But I'm saying, like, on every job site? Is that what that's saying?
That's what I understand.
That's what the shortage of toilet paper is from.
I want to make sure people understand this for a second, though. When you fill out this form, you're now saying that you're going to adhere to the Occupational Safety and Health Act rules.
Right.
And I don't know that anybody knows what they are. Furthermore, what I'm understanding is right now you're supposed to bring a toilet on the facility and have first aid kits available. And I don't know if businesses do that. So we'll continue.
Yeah.
Civil rights, 13 CFR 112, 113, 117. All businesses receiving SBA financial assistance must agree not to discriminate in any business practice, including employment practices and services to the public, on the basis of categories cited in 13 CFR Parts 112, 113, 117, and SBA regulations. All borrowers must display the equal opportunity poster described by the SBA. I'm asking you guys, seriously. I mean, do we have these posters up?
I know we do at Elephant because we get them from Personnel Concepts.
Oh, and those are expensive posters.
They are.
How much were those posters?
I remember one time I got a call from Jonathan. And he was just like, "What did you spend $1,300 on?" I go, "What?" And so we look at the invoice, and I had just gotten off the phone, and this is how they got me. They said, "Hey, we just want to make sure that your forms are up to date." I said, "Okay, well, what do I need?" And so they said, "Do you have X amount of employees? Do you have this? Do you have this? Do you have this?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay. Well, here's the card that we have on file, so let's go ahead and make sure that that's updated. Have a great day." And then 2 days later, we get this massive box of all of these new forms we have to put up. And I will say the lamination was really good, but I don't know if it was $1,300 good.
Nice. Now, Equal Credit Opportunity Act. Creditors are prohibited from discriminating against credit clients on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, sex, marital status, or age, provided the applicant has the capacity to enter into a binding contract, because all or part of the applicant's individual income derives from any public assistance program, or because the applicant has in good faith exercised any right under the Consumer Protection Act. The Debarment and Suspension Executive Order 12549. By submitting this loan application, you certify that neither the applicant or any other of the applicant may have within the past 3 years been debarred, suspended, declared ineligible, or voluntarily excluded from participation in a transaction by any federal agency formally proposed for debarment with a final determination still pending, indictment, convicted, or have any civil judgment rendered against you for any offenses listed in the regulations, or delinquent on any amounts owed to the U.S. government or its instrumentalities as of the date of the execution of this certification. So, what we know is that the vast majority of businesses have been, many businesses have been asked to close because of what? When did this all start? So I'm going to give people a little timeline, and hopefully this is helpful. So when did the idea to start? When did people become fearful of this? Breck, what do you know about it? I'm not painting you into a corner. I'm not looking for a hard date. I just want to know, when did people first start freaking out about the coronavirus?
In my experience, I would say kind of that second week of March. So I don't know what date that is. Maybe March 10th, somewhere around there.
Nathan, when did people start freaking out about this?
I'd say sometime in March, though I did have a customer who was over in China back in the fall, and she said they started freaking out back in November and sent her home. So they've known about it for a while.
Okay. So why I'm asking the question, why did we freak out? Where did the first report come that freaked us out?
That was our good buddy Neil.
Now, I want to make sure the listeners get this idea, and I'm putting all this on the show notes so you guys can find it and research it.
Right.
Neil Ferguson, just like everybody out there, we all have a bias. I'm a libertarian, okay? I'm a libertarian. You know I'm a libertarian. I talk about it all the time. I'm a libertarian. You can tell by the things I say I'm a libertarian. Thus, I have a bias to be a libertarian. That's what I do. Everybody has a bias, though. There's nobody who doesn't have a bias of some kind. Okay?
Sure.
So Neil Ferguson is the director of the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics. So, who is funding the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics? Someone should look that up. But he predicted that we would have a total of 2.2 million American deaths and 500,000 deaths in the United Kingdom. That's what he predicted. And so right away, because he predicted that big number, people began to get scared. He predicted 2.2 million deaths. Now, I'm going to cue up the audio of Dr. Deborah Birx, who was appointed by President Obama, and this is what she has to say about the report. Let me cue it up here.
Of the 550,000 important facts for the American people.
Here we go.
I'm sure many of you saw the recent report out of the UK about them adjusting completely their needs.
The report from Neil Ferguson.
This is really quite important. If you remember, that was the report that said there would be 500,000 deaths in the UK and 2.2 million deaths in the United States. They've adjusted that number in the UK to 20,000. So 500,000 to 20,000. We're looking into this in great detail.
So what that means is Neil Ferguson's predictions were off by 25 times more doomsday-ish than they really were. So
Right.
instead of predicting 2.2 million American deaths and 500,000 UK deaths, now we're down to 20,000 United Kingdom deaths and 88,000 American deaths. Now, the common flu every year kills 80,000 people. That's how many people die from the common flu every year, 80,000, including 180 deaths of children. So I cue up to you, I'm going to cue up the audio. This is from CNN talking about how dangerous the coronavirus is for kids. So here we go.
As any parent knows, children get colds and viruses a lot. But mercifully, children are not getting terribly sick from this new coronavirus.
Children simply don't get very sick when they get this infection.
And that's Dr. Arthur Reingold from the University of California, Berkeley. All right, so we know that it's not that dangerous for kids.
True. Right.
We know that about as many people who die from the common flu die from this. So why are we much more scared? These are the questions. And so if you queue up, there's a Fox News interview. I'll play the audio here. This is a Fox News interview with President Trump on the White House lawn. Here we go.
What we're trying to figure out in this whole scenario here is how deadly the virus is. And so far, it is highly contagious, but not very deadly. We can agree on that based on the data.
So what we know is that this coronavirus is more contagious, but less deadly. We have a gentleman named Dr. Stephen Smith, who was on Fox recently talking about potential treatments for the coronavirus. Let me hit play here. Here we go.
But Dr. Smith, you pointed out that not a single patient of yours, COVID patient, that has been on the hydroxy regimen has had to be intubated. For people who don't know what intubated means, please explain quickly.
Yeah, so intubated means you're in respiratory failure and you have to be put on a ventilator. Intubation means actually putting the tube down into your trachea and then you're placed on a ventilator for support, respiratory support. We've had, I mentioned the 20 intubations, over most all of them occurred in the first 2 days. More importantly, no person has received 5 days or more of the hydroxychloroquine and zithro combination has been intubated. The chance of that occurring by chance, according to my sons Leon and Hunter, who did some stats for me, are 0.000 something. It's ridiculously low depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
It's ridiculously low no matter how you look at it. We worry about selection bias in this situation, but I cannot think of a reason why, if all else is equal, why people that have received 5 days or more, or even 4 days or more, this hydroxychloroquine, zithro regimen, wouldn't get innovated. In other words, if the regimen didn't work, why would it just be the people that didn't get nearly complete the regimen? Most of the people were in the first 2 days.
Right, Dr. Smith, we're going to have you. We're going to have you back. Yeah, it's a game changer, correct?
It's a game changer. Absolute game changer. I think these data go to really support the French data. Now you actually have an intra-cohort comparison saying that this regimen works. And I'll get some real statisticians besides my sons to look at that.
Dr. Smith, thank you for all the work. You and I and our medicine cabinet of folks and all your colleagues, thank you.
Laura, I think this is the beginning of the end of the pandemic. I'm very serious.
Oh, wow. This is unbelievable. Well, Dr. Smith, all the naysayers and the people dismissing this, just wait, okay? The good news is coming. Dr. Smith,
now, Dr. Oz, who people are more familiar with Dr. Oz, I encourage you to look up Dr. Stephen Smith. Listen to Dr. Oz talking about the treatments for the coronavirus. This is Dr. Oz.
First off, what could you tell us? I read in the New York Times today, they wrote the story. We heard about your show yesterday, hydroxychloroquine. We had great hope for this a week ago. Then we didn't hear much of it. What can you tell us about this now?
Well, there is an important randomized study, still unpublished, from Wuhan, China. Dr. Ian Lipkin joins me on the show. He's the famous virus hunter. We've spoken to the medical leadership of China. We've vetted the study. We think it's real. Here's what they showed. 62 patients randomized. Half of them get the traditional therapy they're offering in China. Half of them get traditional therapy, plus they added hydroxychloroquine, the medication, the malaria drug we've been talking about. And here are their results. We have a full screen. We can put it up so everyone can look at this and digest it. In terms of symptoms, their temperature, their fevers broke instead of 3 days, which is the norm over there on this treatment, they got 2 days, which is cutting a 50% reduction. In terms of coughing, the other big symptom you have, again, it takes a little over 3 days oftentimes for that to go away, and that was dropped to 2 days. Those symptoms also correlate with infectivity. So the fact that they were dropping the amount of time they have those symptoms may also reflect the reduction of infectivity, but they didn't measure that. And here's the part that really caught my attention. They did CT scans of the chest in all the patients. All the patients had pneumonia when they started. Over the course of the 5-day treatment with the hydroxychloroquine, in 55% of the control population where they just got the normal therapy, there was some resolve and resolution of the pneumonia. In 81% of the patients on the hydroxychloroquine, there was improvement in the lungs images.
So we know that this coronavirus is going to kill about as many people as the common flu, maybe more. We know that the guy who initially pitched the fear of the pandemic was Neil Ferguson, who is the director of the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics. Right. We know he's adjusted his predictions from 2.2 million deaths down to 88,000 in America. We know he's adjusted his predictions from 500,000 in the UK, now down to 20,000 deaths in the United Kingdom. We know that Dr. Stephen here, we know Dr. Oz, they're sharing right now case studies that show that this coronavirus is treatable based upon their studies. But one thing I want to caution all the listeners to do is I wouldn't really think a lot about China if I were you, because they're communists. Now I'm going to cue up this audio, and I want everyone to listen to this audio. This is how China is minimizing the spread of the coronavirus. And when you hear this, if you do not get goosebumps, if you do not freak out, if your sense of American liberty is not totally just freaked out, I don't know that you're an American. So listen to this, and just this is how China is limiting the spread, quote unquote, of the virus. Here we go.
This little QR code.
This is according to Reuters, by the way. This is a Reuters report.
This little QR code is a lot more powerful than it looks. It helps collect data about your travel history, health status, and more. And China's using it to track citizens and stop those infected with the coronavirus. First, you fill out a questionnaire. It asks for details like your body temperature. It then generates a color code, and at checkpoints popping up across China, green means go.
It's my first time to come outside after the epidemic, But I already used the QR code several times, and I think it's good.
Because you're a communist, and all communists think that everything the government does is good, because communists are in favor of giving up their individual liberty in exchange for a little safety.
It's proof of your identity. Our country is upgrading, and I think it's good to carry it out.
Right, because you're a communist.
The codes are being scanned everywhere, from restaurants to apartment blocks. Major cities and more than half of China's provinces have started to use the color codes, a way to make tracking down infected people easier for authorities. But Western diplomats and activists have criticized China's mass surveillance in the past and expressed concerns about what else this data could be used for. William Nee is a human rights advisor at Amnesty International.
We've seen the use of big data to do predictive policing and detain people really for no reason. So there's a concern that although this data is being perhaps collected for a legitimate purpose, that it could potentially eventually be misused.
Now let me read for you. This is just the 2019. These are the 2019. This is China's. They call these human rights violations. This is just the ones. These are just a few of the highlights of China's human rights violations in the year 2019. And again, I didn't have time to look up all. These are just a few of them from Amnesty International. 1. The human rights situation continued to be marked by a systematic crackdown on dissent. Basically, if you don't agree. The justice system remained plagued by unfair trials and torture of other ill treatment in detention. China still classified information on its extensive use of the death penalty as a state secret. So in China, if you disagree, you die, which is why they're communists. People seem to somehow forget this idea of how crazy communism is. Breck, torture.
Right.
They're
Well, that's
saying
why the woman that was in that clip, of course she likes the idea, because she doesn't like to be killed. I mean, you're not going to find somebody who disagrees with the idea, because otherwise they already know where she's at, what she's doing, who she is, automatically, because she has her QR code. They're going to be at her door in minutes.
They have a systematic crackdown on dissent, and their justice system is plagued with trials that result in torture.
Right. There's no innocence until proven guilty.
Right. Now, in March, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights stated that her office sought to engage the Chinese government for full access to carry out an independent assessment of the continuing reports pointing to wide patterns of enforcement disappearances in arbitrary detentions. Now, what happened here recently in China is they're trying to deal with the coronavirus, and the people that dissented just disappeared.
Yep.
Well, I mean, you can't say they dissented if they didn't come out to dissent and disappeared.
I'm just trying to explain to you the argument that's being made is we should shut our entire country down to protect ourselves from the coronavirus and give up all of our civil rights in order to...
That was from the United Nations, by the way.
Yes. Now, this is Benjamin Franklin. He couldn't be here today because he's dead. He's one of our founding fathers. He said, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Breck, what does he mean by that?
Well, I think he's a genius. So essentially, when you apply this to today, he's saying if you're willing to give up the liberties we have now, for the safety that's being, I would say, falsely offered, then you deserve neither liberty nor the safety.
Now,
I think you said it well. I don't really know that it needs any further explanation.
Now, the Constitution, this controversial document, we have the First Amendment.
Yep.
It reads this, and you tell me what you think it means there, Breck, and I want to get Nathan's take on this. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of a religion.
Right.
What does that mean?
It means there's no state religion in the U.S.
Okay, fair. Or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. What does that mean?
It means they can't stop me from praying.
Are you going to go to church today?
Well, we're visiting online. I don't get to go to church today.
Or abridging the freedom of speech or the press or the right of the people to peaceably assemble.
Not allowed right now.
You can't peaceably assemble.
Yeah, I mean, the last I heard, it was, it had been 50 or fewer, 10 or fewer. Now it's, what is it called? Safe in place or
shelter in place.
Shelter in place.
You can't peaceably assemble.
You can't peaceably assemble.
Does it seem as though we may have given up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety?
It feels that way for sure.
Well, and I wanted to throw something, and I'm not going
Sure.
to give you my address, so you can't figure out where I'm at.
Okay.
But today at 11:30, we've decided in our neighborhood we're going to meet just so that we can get together for a little church, because if we're not allowed to go meet at some place of worship, then we're going to make our place of worship in our neighborhood. And that way we can have something, because we can't forsake that. We can't give up our coming together and connecting it. Whether you're religious or not religious, you still got to see people. And that's what brings the hope, and that brings you see someone in their eyes and connection, and we need to keep that up.
Well, physically, we are built for community.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, Human Rights Watch, they work with Amnesty International to report violations. This is just from 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Authorities have carried out mass arbitrary detention, torture, and mistreatment of some of them in various detention facilities, and increasingly imposed pervasive controls on daily life. Human rights defenders continue to endure arbitrary detention, imprisonment, and enforced disappearance. The government maintains tight control over the internet, mass media, and academia. Also in July, a political cartoonist was sentenced to 6.5 years in prison for subversion of state power and illegally crossing a national border. The government restricts religious practice to 5 officially recognized religions in officially approved premises. Authorities retain control over religious bodies, personnel appointments, publications, finances, and seminary applications. As China faces an unprecedented sex ratio imbalance and aging population, authorities promoted traditional roles for women, encouraging them to marry and have children. The problem is when women have a baby girl in China, you can't pass down any net worth or value to girls. You can't pass down an inheritance to girls. So what happens, Nathan, to the girls?
Ooh.
They kill them.
I don't want to say it's a mountainside, but they are known for a mountainside.
Disappeared. Killing sounds terrible. They just disappear.
I'm just saying.
Well,
why?
orphanages are full of baby girls in China.
Yes.
If in fact they don't actually disappear, the orphanages are not full of baby boys.
Now, the bride shortage in China has triggered sex trafficking of women from a number of neighboring countries, an abuse largely ignored by the Chinese government. Although the one-child policy now has been relaxed to 2 children, women and girls continue to face violations of their reproductive rights, a.k.a. forced abortions.
Right.
So I ask you, who the hell cares what the Chinese are talking about? It doesn't make any sense to me that we even recognize them as a country. It's insanity that we'd work with them. It's insanity that we buy stuff from them. It's insanity that we are giving up all of our liberty to buy crap from them. Mm-hmm. It's insane. And I hope that this particular crisis awakens us up to the fact that we cannot behave like the Chinese. We can't take their approach to ending the coronavirus and make it applicable here. We can't get in a situation where right now, this was on Fox News the other day, it's over 98% of all of the pharmaceutical drugs, over 90% of all of the pharmaceutical drugs made, designed in America are produced over there in China. Mm. We can't get to a level. Now watch the rest of this video. This is from Reuters explaining how China is dealing with their coronavirus. Check this out.
In ways that we can't predict right now.
It is unclear whether the data is analyzed on a national level, as local authorities often use a variety of systems made by different companies, such as Alibaba's Alipay and Tencent's WeChat. But the number of reported cases has slowed in recent weeks. China only reported 4 new locally transmitted cases on Sunday, which were all in Wuhan, where the virus outbreak originated.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So, folks, if you're out there today and you're a little bit frustrated that you've had to give up a lot of your liberty to tackle this coronavirus case, I think you're justified in having those concerns. I think people don't want to speak about the concerns because it's a very weird worldview. I've been very consistent with my weird worldview since I was born 39 weird years ago. But I don't understand this concept that we as a country are willing to shut everything down to protect ourselves from a virus that was reported to potentially put 2.2 million American lives at risk. I mean, how come How come, Breck, how come people aren't out there saying, Sherry, Carl, the director of the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute, which is supported by the Saudi Arabians, how come people aren't saying, did you guys know that the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics, that the head of the director of that institute, he says that 2.2 million Americans might die? How come that isn't being discussed?
Well, excuse me. Initially, I think that was discussed. I think what hasn't been discussed more thoroughly is the gross misrepresentation that those numbers brought out. So, you haven't heard too many people passing on or sharing information, whether that be social media or the media at large, about the 25 times misrepresentation of the actual numbers. So last check I had, we've actually had just over 8,000 American lives lost to the coronavirus.
Yep.
And so there's still this idea that we are going to have a large peak in the next couple of weeks. And so, I do think that the reporting is going to continue to climb. We are going to see more U.S. deaths as well as more cases found because we're checking for it. But I think we are going to fall well short of even 80,000 in total for the number of deaths here in the U.S. And the crazy part is I don't know that that's really because of all of these extreme measures that are being taken. I'm not sure that it was ever going to reach those numbers in the first place. And so, you can't know what you've prevented. So that's the real hard part is, there's going to be credit given in places that may or may not actually deserve credit for saving American lives.
Are you not at all worried, Nathan, that we just shut down our country and forced people to be dependent on the government? When Benjamin Franklin, who was one of our most adamant, outspoken founding fathers, when they specifically wrote into the founding documents, when Benjamin Franklin went out there and specifically said, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Are you not at all worried about that?
Oh, this concerns me greatly. And seeing, and I think I've talked to so many people this last week. This is one of my first times in my life that I've seen the government come in and say that you cannot come together at your church. You can't meet. And I'm like, that's one of our essential liberties that we're supposed to have. And who should be the first place we go to? So people in factories, they can keep working, but people that want to come together spiritually, so need spiritual healing, they can't do it. And I think this is something we need to really look at and address and be careful, because if this is a slippery slope, you allow them this time to do it, then what's going to happen next time? What will they then allow next time? Next time, will they just come by the door and lock it from the outside? Are we okay with that too?
Well, and I feel like they're tiptoeing because they haven't made it illegal to gather, but they've strong-armed, the church leadership to close their doors.
And they have taken a pastor to church or to a jail.
Yeah, in Florida.
In Florida, who went ahead and decided to meet. Now, let me throw out this idea for you guys. This is wild. Do you remember, Jason? What was the movie that was a spoof on Kim Jong-un?
Oh, The Interview. I recently watched that over the past couple of weeks because my wife was freaking out. So I was like, hey, let's watch something funny about communism since it's a real thing now.
So let's talk about this for a second. That movie. Do you remember
Franco?
James Franco's in the movie.
And Seth Rogen. Yep.
And it was created to essentially mock Kim Jong-un for being a horrible dictator.
Right.
I heard he loved it.
Well, I want to make sure we're getting this idea.
But Dennis Rodman took it a different direction and just decided to live it out.
Well, I want to make sure the listeners get this idea. The reason why I want the listeners to understand this. The reason why that movie is so important is it was the first time that an American president altered American behavior to appease a communist dictator. So Kim Jong-un said, if you release this movie, I'm going to bomb your theaters. And so they refused for the movie to be released. Thus, a dictator imposed his will on the American people through threats. So you just have to understand the idea there. Things kind of switched there. And now you have Deborah Birx, who was appointed by Obama, and she's the doctor that leading this whole charge. And she's saying, hey, we need to shut the country down. We need to shut it down. Let me play the audio. This is President Trump explaining why he had to shut the country down, why he said he had to. I totally disagree with him. That's my worldview, but here we go.
4 weeks ago, We had the greatest economy in the history of the world, the greatest in the world, greatest in the history of the world. We had the most jobs ever in the history of the United States, almost 160 million jobs, right? And then one day, I get a call from Deborah, who's fantastic, and from Dr. Fauci. And she said, we have a problem. I said, what's the problem? And they said, we may have to close it up. I said, close what up? They said, close up the country. I said, what's that all about? And we discussed today, and probably not since 1970.
So all I'm saying is that Trump says he was told he had to shut the country down. Well, he didn't have to. He chose to. So, but now we've set the precedence that's what we do.
Right.
That whenever there is a big problem that potentially could kill people, whenever Neil Ferguson, and I'm just telling you this, Neil Ferguson he's not our president. None of us knew who he was,
or an American.
Right. So now let's just go there for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say for a second that Neil Ferguson didn't like America. Let's just say he didn't. Okay? Everybody has their own bias. Nobody has ever caused more harm to our country economically than Neil Ferguson.
True.
It's true. You know, the saddest part about this for me is I'm a huge cinema fan. Now action movies are going to suffer in the future because after this, they can no longer have that iconic scene in the war room where the general picks up the phone and says, we do not negotiate with terrorists. Now it's going to be, well, let's hear him out. He might have something.
I want to make sure everybody gets this idea, though. Neil Ferguson, who is not the president, he's not congressman, we don't even know his name. We have no idea if he's a good guy or a bad guy. We just know that his report was off by 25 times. And as a result of his report, we as a country decided to shut it down.
True.
And now Deborah Birx, who nobody seems to know anything about, other than she was appointed by a progressive president who had socialistic worldviews, people assume, well, she must have our best intentions. What if Neil Ferguson doesn't want our country to do well? What if he does? Either way, we decided to exchange all of our civil liberty based upon the report of this man. And now we are all trusting Dr. Deborah Birx, believing that she has our best interests in mind. But I would ask, what if she doesn't? Breck?
Well, a week ago, we were also anticipating that by Easter, we may all be back to work and that the workforce would be, back in place.
And now we're talking about...
And now we're to the end of April, at least, as it stands today.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, what if they don't have our best intentions? Or our best... what if they don't have our best interests in mind? What if they don't want us to do well? What if Neil Ferguson has a socialistic worldview? What if Neil Ferguson wants the World Health Organization to tell America what to do? What if yesterday, people don't know these things. This is unbelievable. Now, I just read you about China, didn't I?
Yeah.
Now, China yesterday was given a position on the Human Rights Council. They've been denied that forever, and they just got it yesterday. So now China is going to get to tell people with the United Nations what is acceptable behavior.
Right.
And they believe that torture makes a lot of sense.
Or disappearance.
Disappearance. So I'm just throwing it.
Heard them out on their arguments.
I'm just making sure we're getting this idea, though.
Right.
So I look at the world, I take in all the data, and I'm trying to point out to you guys, Neil Ferguson is not a name you knew at all before this thing.
True. Correct.
And he now, his report, which was off by 25 times, shut our country down. And then Deborah Birx, who you did not know before now, who was appointed by Obama, further shut our country down. As Trump said, she came to him and said, we have to shut it down.
Right.
So I say to President Trump, this is what I would say to you, I mean this with all due respect, grow some balls. And stand up to Neil Ferguson and to Deborah, just like George Washington did when we were fighting against the British, just like Benjamin Franklin did. Have some testicular fortitude and say, Our Constitution gives us the right to peaceably assemble. Our Constitution was created so that we could move away from King George and his worldview. We wanted to get away from King George. And I've made a list of the reasons why we decided to leave. It's called the Declaration of Independence. And I've put a link to this on today's show notes so you can see this. But this says, King George, he's refused. I'm reading the Declaration of Independence. It says, he has refused his assent to laws the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden the governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly and continually for opposing manly firmness his invasions of the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected. He has endeavored to prevent the populations of these states for that purpose, obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners. He has suffered the administration of justice totally and cease in some these states, refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made our judges dependent on his will alone for his tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices by a self-assured power. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies and ships of war without the consent of the legislator. He has affected to render the military independent and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a foreign jurisdiction, foreign to our Constitution and acknowledged by our laws. Listen, he has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and acknowledged by our laws. He was essentially consulting with China to say, this is what they did, now you should do it. It's not an American solution to shut our country down.
No.
It's not an American solution. It's not an American solution. It says, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders, for cutting off trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent. What do you think just happened? We were forced to shut down, and we were forced to go to the government to get a paycheck that you have to pay back, by the way, through inflation, for depriving us of the benefits of a trial, for transporting us beyond the seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws, for taking away our charters, abolishing our valuable laws. Again, it says in the Constitution, you have the right to peaceably assemble, for suspending our own legislatures. He has abdicated government, here withdrawing his governors. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coast, burnt our towns. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms. He has endeavored to bring on inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions of existence. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of the people. Folks, we decided to start this country to get away from this tyrannical worldview where one person, Dr. Deborah Birx and Neil Ferguson, can impose upon us foreign people. Neil Ferguson, foreigners can tell us what to do. Nathan, you had a hot take, and Breck, you did too. So, Nathan, what do you got?
I've got a customer who's an epidemiologist, and she said that all these models, all these things, because she was on the phone call talking about the Neil Ferguson report, and she said that there was one version of the report that has 2.2 million. There's another version that had like tens of thousands. There's another version that had thousands. And you'd have to choose which version you wanted to pick to be able to find the most worst case scenario. So somebody looked at his report and chose the Chicken Little approach to it to say the world's on fire instead of the more middle of the road ones that said, hey, this isn't all that's going to happen.
And let's say the world was on fire. Let's say that 2.2 million people were going to die. Does it make any sense to give up all of your essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety? You know, President Ronald Reagan said this, and then Breck, I want to get your take.
Yeah.
He said freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We
Amen.
didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. Breck, what say you?
Well, my question is, with this economic injury relief program, what is the actual full total cost of that to the American people?
I have no idea. I can tell you right now that we've been talking about a $2.2 trillion stimulus package, but right now it's up to $6 trillion.
Okay, and then my follow-up to that is, who is the biggest holder of our debt as the U.S. Deficit?
China.
Oh, yeah.
Who just got a UN Human Rights Council position, despite a long record of human rights violations. It just happened.
So who does it benefit most if the U.S. economy stops?
So think about this. China, we just passed a huge stimulus.
Mm-hmm.
And who paid for it?
No one yet.
Who owns our debt? Who owns the most of our debt?
China.
Mm-hmm.
And at the very time we just agreed to start funding this stimulus on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And within 24 hours, the Chinese have now been put on the UN Human Rights Council.
For the first time.
For the first time.
Guys, I'm so glad I finally started to take those Mandarin classes because it's going to pay off.
Holy crap. So
Papers,
that's where we're
please.
at right now. So if you're out there today, I want you to be encouraged that the virus isn't as scary as people think it is. I want to encourage you that Italy reports and the Center for Disease Control reports that 99.2% of all of those who died were had severely compromised immune systems and or were old. I want to encourage you that the treatments for this are working and showing all great signs of helping people to overcome this. And so, but I do also want to put in your brain just a cautionary note that it makes zero sense to give up your essential liberty for potential safety. And if you are in favor of giving up your essential liberty for potential safety, you are going to get neither, and you deserve neither, because it's a jackass worldview. And if you want to do what the jackasses do, if you want to live in a world where Reuters reports where you have a QR code and you run around and the government can tell you can walk over here and you can walk over there, but you can't walk over here, and where the government can tell you how many kids you can have, and the government can tell you what sports you're going to play and what activities you can do, and the government can tell you when to have an abortion, the government can tell you how many kids you can have. If you want to live in that kind of world, get out of our country. Go away. Go move to China. That's a great place for you. They'll like you there. And if you don't like them, they can kill you. It's either way. It's a great thing. And so we're going to go ahead and wrap up today's show with a boom. And remember, these mics are hot. Nathan, you had a hot take.
Well, before we finish this out, we started this off on the payroll protection plan that all these small businesses should be doing. I wanted to encourage small businesses, because I've heard this question by at least 8 to 10 small business friends this week, and they're like, oh, we're going to run out of money. This just won't go through. And so I did some research, and on the government's website, the reason they came up with $349 billion, you guys, I don't know if you've covered this yet, but the reason they came up with that number is they believe that's 2.5 times the payroll of the United States. And so this is designed to cover everybody. And that's the reason they came up with that number. So don't hold back. Go for this. Get stimulated. Get the economy moving again. Because if we don't, as small businesses, get this economy moving again, no one else is going to do it. Because we can already see the people that are they're just out there just trying to look for the thing. They're willing to just stay home and get a paycheck. It's up to us, because I did this week. Oh, my goodness, this just ticked me off so bad. I've done 5 jobs this week for people that were looking for a carpet cleaner, an essential business, and they called a carpet cleaner and they said, we're not cleaning carpets because of the coronavirus. You're freaking essential. Get out there and do your job. We're supposed to be. If we don't go do our job, nobody's going to do it. This economy can't get off the ground unless small businesses, like people that listen to this podcast, get out there and make this economy great again.
I agree with you, and I would just say, again, look at the statistics. The coronavirus isn't really that dangerous for you, despite what you've been told. So hang in there, carpet cleaners who are afraid of the coronavirus, and grow some testicles. Now, without any further ado, 3, 2, 1, boom!
Why does this still keep happening to me? I don't know whose prayer I'm breaking into, but I'm breaking into somebody's prayer saying, Lord, why do I keep going do the same things over and over again. And the Lord sent me here to tell you the problem is with your default. Until you change your default, you will always go back to being who you were before because you have never changed your mind. You change your friends, you change your address, you change your phone number, you change the songs you sing, you changed everything else, but you didn't change your mind. There is nothing as powerful as a changed mind.
Boom! Nothing as powerful as a changed mind. Boom! Better get yours, cause I'ma take mine. Boom! Leave them where they got if they ain't ready. Used to have a lot of homies, now they dropping like a betty. I'm like, boom! We taking over, it's our time now. Boom! Oh, you ain't know, we about to thrive now. Big, overwhelming, optimistic, momentum, A place. Hey, back, let me get 'em. Go get 'em then. Hurdle every obstacle, trying to do the impossible. Turned my whole life around, haters thought it was comical. Had to make some moves, didn't even seem logical. Quarterback to play, man, I had to call it audible. Drop back, stop that. Rearrange or switch it up. Only got one life to live, it's best that you go live it up. Failure ain't an option, ain't no way that I can give it up. Hey, knowledge, gon' pick it up. Nothing like your posse, look poppy, you cannot top me. They watch me and try to copy like Rocky, you cannot stop me. Hungrier than ever, we grinding all through the weather. We shining because we better get with us, we bout our cheddar. Once I change my mind, dog, trust me, ain't no going back. Coming for that top spot, I'm feeling like they owe me that. Time for us to level up, I feel like we've been holding back. Throw your hands up, say it with me if you know it, Dad. Boom! Nothing is powerful as a changed mind. Boom! Better get yours, cause I'ma take mine. Boom! Leave them where they got if they ain't ready. Used to have a lot of homies, now they dropping like a betty. I'm like, boom! We taking over, it's our time now. Boom! Oh, you ain't know, we about to thrive now. Big, overwhelming, optimistic, momentum, A place. Hey, back, let me get 'em. Yeah. Came a long way from where I used to be. Don't even see life the way I used to see it. Old habits die hard, but you gotta leave them. If they ain't riding like a Harley, then you don't need them. You're cheering and you're clapping, I don't need that. Fake friends treat them like Fat Joe, make them lean back. Excitement, no vision, makes you blind, I can see that. Anything I think up in my mind, I can achieve that. I can make a million if I want to. I'ma keep it real cause I want to. Other women try to holler, girl, I want you. And disrespecting wifey's what I won't do. Gon' do your dance, gon' do your dance. If you really wanna change, gotta have a plan. Even when they sit down, I'ma take a stand. Throw your hands up, say it with me if you know it, man.
Beliefs become your thoughts become your actions. So be intentional about where your passion is focused. There's no hocus pocus. We only live once, man, and you know this. You can't press the rewind, but you can make a beeline to the next level like you're headed for the tree line. I was born in Minnesota, moved to Oklahoma, incorporated both into my rhymes. Now it's time to show you how a former stuttering student can turn out the raps with a lyrical miracle flow in the cash to match. Yeah, I'm imported, a Minnesota refugee, but I'm consistent as can be as I rap on hip-hop beats, bringing rappers and tax. Even though that I'm wise, I can play that funky music, but I ain't vanilla ice. Here we go, here we go, here we go, full steam. 3, 2, 1, dynamite on the scene.
Boom! Nothing as powerful as a changed mind. Boom! Better get yours, cause I'ma take mine. Boom! Leave them where they got if they ain't ready. Used to have a lot of homies, now they dropping like a betty. I'm like, boom! We taking over, it's our time now. Boom! Oh, you ain't know, we about to thrive now. Big, overwhelming, optimistic, momentum. Boom!
And the Lord sent me here to tell you the problem is with your default. Until you change your default, you will always go back to being who you were before because you have never changed your mind. You change your friends, you change your address, you change your phone number, you change the songs you sing, you changed everything else, but you didn't change your mind. There is nothing as powerful as a changed mind.
Hear the rest of T.D. Jakes' incredible, life-changing, and mind-altering sermon, Nothing as Powerful as a Changed Mind Today, by looking up T.D. Jakes on YouTube and typing in Nothing as Powerful as a Changed Mind.
You're getting ready to flow.
That is a lyrical miracle rap